Hey everybody, Mike Miller with the Herald Times, joined by columnist Andy Graham, coming to you from Memorial Stadium after what was the final score?
33-28.
33-28, there you go. Yeah, the one that got away.
Did get away.
A month into the season, Indiana has already let one get away. Definitely some positive things coming out of this one, a whole lot of just hand-wringing, really, I think, just from the mistakes that were really toppled them. It was a snowballing kind of afternoon of just mistakes, miscues, misfires, just poor thing, just penalties, 9 penalties. A lot went wrong. It all kind of accumulated. It wasn't one fatal blow. It was really just the accumulation of mistakes that really did Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, Richard Lego had 5 interceptions, and that's obviously a tremendously negative stat. But he hardly had a monopoly on mistakes for Indiana. There were plenty to go around, and a lot of really good play too. I mean, it was one of those things where Indiana outgained Wake Forest today, 611 to 352, and I know it's not a game of stats. And Nick Westbrook, the Indiana wide receiver who caught a 75-yard touchdown pass on the game's first snap from scrimmage, made that very point. He said it's not a game of stats, but man, we were moving the ball up and down the field. And he was right. They did, and they just didn't score enough points, and the interceptions came back to bite them. But a lot of the mistakes that were made weren't as overt as that. I mean, when you look back on them, they weren't innocuous either. I mean, even the very first Wake Forest drive, Indiana had just gone up 7-0, and Ralph Green just leans into the neutral zone just a bit, just a hair off sides. He got back, but not quite in time before the snap. And Indiana recovered a fumble on that play, deep in Wake territory.
30-yard line.
And had that fumble stood without the penalty, I mean, Indiana might have roared right into the end zone again to make it 14-0. And then Wake, which is not a high-scoring team by nature, might have had a real issue just trying to stay with Indiana at that point. So, there were 4 defensive penalties in one drive in the fourth quarter that produced, I think, Wake's final touchdown.
Wake's final touchdown drive.
And that drive could have been stopped 3 or 4 times.
I'll point to another one, too, late in the second half. Lego completes a 14-yard pass to Mitchell Page that takes him to the 2-yard line.
Yeah.
Coy Cronk called for holding. Yeah. Knocked back to the 26. And
was that Cronk or Rogers?
That was Cronk.
Cronk, okay.
And I think he had two procedural penalties today. 2 plays later, a 36-yard field goal attempt is blocked.
Yeah.
They were on the doorstep, blocked field goal instead. So it was that kind of day. You can point to a whole lot of things. I mean, and beyond just the mistakes too, you can probably point to decision making too. You look at that 4th and 1 call with Tyler Nate on the field. There in the second quarter. Tough situation for a freshman, especially running that play. I
mean, I didn't get into that in the column, and I'm sure he's really adept at running that play. I'm sure he's shown that in practice. I mean, he did that as a high school quarterback, but it's still his first snap in a college game, and he has to make that read and make a split-second decision, and that's tough on a 4th and 1. I mean, I think it's a tough thing to require of him, and it did not work. If he hands the ball off to, I think it was Williams, right? I think was in that play, and I'm pretty sure it
was Williams.
I think so. In any case, if he hands it off, it probably does work. But that's a tough thing to do. It's your very first snap coming in. Later on, his second snap that he carried was a touchdown. It was his first career touchdown.
Big bacon on the board.
Tell you what, he looked impressive just cruising over from the 1 there. So look, there's going to be good times ahead for him. There's going to be good times ahead for a lot of Indiana players, Lego included. I mean, it should not be lost in the gloom of a defeat that Richard Lego set a single game Indiana passing record today with 496 yards. So he had his moments without doubt, and he can definitely sling it. The arm strength is there. Sometimes he throws it a bit too hard, I think, maybe.
When
a little more touch would
be.
Yeah. He's fired up out there, and I think that his capacity is considerable. I mean, there's no question that if he continues to learn and grow, and he'll learn from this today, I'm sure. If he continues to learn and grow, he could be a really doggone good quarterback here. I don't think there's much question about that. And I think that Indiana's defense made mistakes and screwed themselves up and whatnot, but generally showed, once again, that they're a little bit better than they have been. They held Wake Forest to 352 yards and generally did a pretty good, they forced 9 punts.
Very reasonable day.
So it was a reasonable day from the defense, and I mean, when you look at the offense, for all the offensive production, after that first play of scrimmage, which was the 75-yard touchdown bomb, really pretty throw, by the way, on that,
Yeah,
too.
it was.
Indiana did not score again in the first half. And even with all the offense that they had, I think Indiana had over 300 yards, like 350 yards of offense at halftime. But that was the only points they got was on that very first snap. That has to change. They do need to finish drives better. They do need to be more efficient when they have a chance to score and all of that. But to me, this game struck me as kind of a bad day at the office for a team that has a chance to be pretty good. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even going back to some of Lego's throws, if you want to diagnose it this way, he had, of those 5 picks, 2 were tip balls by receivers. You can maybe quibble about the first one with Timian, who was perhaps a smidge overthrown. Again, that's a little bit of that fastball. He
threw too high and too hard.
Yeah. But again, it was a tip ball. Nick Westbrook had a tip ball that landed in the hands of Jesse Bates, I think. And then
Bates had both those first 2 picks, and the first one picked a big return, and the second one produced a touchdown, a pick 6. And once again, there's a little luck involved there too. I mean, sure, the defender's in a good place to get the ball, but not every tip pass goes right to a defender with a chance for a big return. But those first 2 did. So part of it is just misfortune too. I mean, sure, it's a bit of a misplay. But then again, it's bad luck too, because it goes right to the other team, and they get to roar back down the field. So, by the time Indiana finally had some good luck in that regard, a tip pass that ended up going to a guy wearing a crimson jersey, it was too little, too late. That was actually the play that set the single game passing record. That was a 49-yard touchdown with 11 seconds to go from Lego to Donovan Hale. Yeah. But too much of Indiana didn't have much luck earlier. And once again, to Wake's credit, I don't want to denigrate the way Wake played today. Wake played a really good football game. They made a lot of their own luck. They didn't turn the ball over all day. They managed the game very well. They made there was one drive in the third quarter produced a field goal where a guy made a circus catch on the sideline. It's a well-covered play, but it's 33-yard completion. The guy just made a fantastic catch. And then in what looked like a sure sack and was probably going to take Wake out of field goal position, Wolford, the quarterback, somehow stayed up, put his hand in the turf, kept himself alive, and then had a shuffle pass onto the tailback.
Went for 10 yards on third down.
Went for 10 yards for a first down and ended up creating a field goal. So Wake made the plays that Wake needed to make to win the game. Indiana made too many mistakes to win the game. And this is going to, if Indiana ends up really trying to fight for a bowl bid this year, have a chance for one, this is one that they're going to look back on and say, man, that's one that we should have gotten. And they're right. I mean, I think, I'm not sure the better team won today, but the team that played better won today.
No question about it. And I think to get better, especially offensively, to at least allow a running game to materialize, they got to get Dan Feeney back. They got to get Dimitri Camille back.
Right.
Feeney's still having some issues with the concussion. Dimitri Camille was a bit of a surprise not seeing him out there today. He had developed a back issue in the last few days. He was unable to go. They started Jacob Bailey as you would expect at right guard with Feeney out and
Brandon Knight
Nice
the right tackle,
yeah.
And he'd been playing mostly left tackle or tight end.
Yeah.
But so they had to reshuffle their offensive line, and Wake Forest came in only averaging Wake Forest opponents were only averaging 2.4 yards a carry coming in. So it figured to be a tough day running the ball. That was exacerbated by the fact that Indiana's starting right side of the offensive line was unavailable, and those are 2 guys I think are going to be playing on Sundays.
Yeah, Feeney for sure. Camille's
and Dimitri will have a shot.
Yeah, he's going to have a shot.
And that's hard. I mean, look, I don't. It's not to denigrate the guys who come in to replace him, but
look at the success they've had running to the right side. That's the bread and butter.
Feeney's an All-American who plays like an All-American.
I mean, he pulls. He's got a quick first step. He gets to that second level really darn effectively.
And they missed that today. There's no question that helped render Indiana probably a bit too one-dimensional. They were too dependent on Richard Lego, and it was one of those days where Richard Lego's still feeling his way, still learning, still trying to adjust to a new level of play, in the FBS. And he had a mistake-filled day and also a day of real achievement too. I mean, I saw some things from Lego that I liked. There was one play in the third quarter, I think it was, where Wake had a blitzer come through clean, really well-timed blitz, and that guy just drilled, it was one of their linebackers, just drilled Lego hard. And on the very next snap, Lego got up and hit Ricky Jones for 20 yards. After Lego threw his 4th interception, he threw the next 2 passes he threw were like a 65-yarder to Jones. but it was a hell of a throw. And then an even prettier throw, I thought, on the fade, 10 yards to Westbrook for the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw some resiliency and some guts from Lego today, too, not just mistakes. I mean, for all the bad throws that he made many more good throws.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Indiana fans need to hang on. I mean, Coach Wilson said after the game that, Richard, who got an unsportsmanlike call flag late in the game, he took a bit of a late hit, I thought, after throwing the ball, and I think he might have asked the ref for a flag, and he got one, but not on the defense. It was on him. And he'd already, the refs had already told the IU staff, hey, you better calm 21 down a bit. So he was pretty fiery out there, I think, and obviously he's a competitor, wants his team to win, and I think he'll learn from this. He'll learn how to channel that. He'll learn to make fewer mistakes. And he shows tremendous capacity to me. I mean, he can really, really sling it. And Ricky Jones reemerged today in the passing game. A lot of it that depends on what the defense is allowing you to do.
Mm-hmm.
But Ricky went over 200 yards today in receiving.
2 straight 100-yard gains for Nick Westbrook. He leads them at 350-some yards, I think, for the year. So
look, I mean, Cammy and Patrick made an appearance.
Yeah, didn't get in Cammy on brief.
And once again, there was no impact really from him today, but that'll probably change. He's going to make an impact at some point if he stays healthy. So, when Kevin Wilson was saying we need to calm Richard down a little bit, I think Indiana fans should remain calm too. Frankly, they should not overreact to this. This was a bad day at the office that ended up turning into an L, but this still looked like a team that has a chance to be pretty good to me.
Got to wrap it up. I disagreed with the notion of some folks that this was the must-win game. Obviously, when you look at the non-conference and thinking you got to win all 3, I don't believe that. It would have been absolutely, without question, a crucial, helpful win to get, no doubt about it. But this road ahead, October's tough. Don't get me wrong, but it's navigable. Mitchell Page, he was very blunt. We still got a shot.
No, they do.
I mean,
Indiana lost 6 in a row last year and still went to a bowl. Right. I mean, look, the October will be tough. It'll be very, very challenging. They might lose a few, but this team, I think, showed some capacity in these non-conference games, and I think this team is going to get better. I think Lego's going to learn. I think he's going to get more experience. I think he'll get better. I think the defense is better. If the offensive line gets healthy, the running game's going to be there. So I don't think there's any reason for Indiana fans to panic or to start thinking about basketball season just yet. Folks, hang in there. I think this team's going to be a pretty competitive team.
Prime time next week against Michigan State, 8 o'clock on Big Ten Network. We'll be here.
The Spartans are going to be surly. They lost to Wisconsin today. They're not going to be in a good mood.
They're not. Indiana probably shouldn't either, so
yep.
Could get interesting. We'll see.
Somebody will be happy next week.
See you guys.
Thanks.